Okay, I'm sitting on the floor in my bedroom, and this is what used to be my TV console, right? This is where I put my Apple TV, and this is where I put the Sonos Beam Gen 2 soundbar. Now, if I needed to do any form of testing, or if you've heard me do any testing within the room, in this room, with a Beam Gen 2, I actually had to prop it up using another subwoofer to make sure that it's at the correct levels. Now, this is my bed, and my bed is pretty high, as you can see, and if I were to be sitting in bed or lying down in bed and watching the TV right up here with the soundbar on this TV console, there is a problem, right? My ears are going to be right around this level, and the Beam Gen 2 is going to be at this level. So this has been long overdue. The Beam Gen 2 is now mounted on a Flexson wall mount in white steel for the Sonos Beam Gen 2, and now it is at the correct level of my ears. Now, the Beam Gen 2 is an Atmos capable soundbar. It doesn't have upward firing speakers and no drivers firing sound to the top, but what you do need is for the drivers at the front to be at the ear level so that you can perceive the height effect, which is simulated via phase array drivers to convincingly deliver Atmos effects. So now it's at the right levels, and I'm happy. So if you look at this, it's very, very clean. No wires visible from the front, except for the little bit here. But never mind, I can't see it. I'm probably going to put something here, maybe the Sub Mini, to cover up the look. Yep, let's bring the Sub Mini in. And yes, this is the Sub Mini. It should cover the racetrack pretty convincingly, don't you think? And if you are wondering if this is strong, let me show you how I install it, how I level it, and how it will support more than twice the weight of the Sonos Beam Gen 2. So right behind these racetrack covers, they are actually from IKEA, and there are cables running from the TV downwards supplying power, as well as the HDMI cable. There are some other cables which I won't go into details today, but basically what I did was to cut away the racetrack so that it will split at the wall mount. And that leaves a HDMI cable that will go to the ER port on the TV, to the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which is going to be mounted right here, and the power cable which will power the Beam Gen 2. And why did I cut the racetrack? So that when your Beam Gen 2 goes onto the wall mount, it will be perfectly sealed and cover the racetrack, and the cables will be hidden and invisible. I'll show you in just a little bit. Now, in order to level this wall mount, you probably need some professional installer to do it, but if you're trying to do it yourself, basically you need a spirit bubble leveler. So what this level does is to actually ensure that you have the whole wall mount as straight as possible. Now, you don't want to be viewing at an angle, and the Beam Gen 2 is slightly off axis, and it really irritates me. So as you can see from the spirit level, left to right, it is perfectly horizontally level. Now, front to rear needs to be level as well. And as you can see from here, it is not perfectly level. So maybe I'm not as good a DIY person as I would believe myself, but maybe I didn't drill this properly. Now, there's still a little bit of play and some lag, some slack behind the wall mount, right, where it goes to the wall. Now, the Flexson mounting kit does not come with any wall plugs at all, so you've got to supply those on your own. But this is nothing a credit card can solve. Credit card as in, you can cut up a credit card. So what I did was to cut up a card. I applied some duct tape over to achieve the correct thickness, where I can then shove behind the wall mount so that it is still hidden away from view. As you can see here, below every screw, I'm gonna put something in, and on both sides as well. If you notice, you won't actually be able to see this after it is installed. Okay, so something dropped out. Let's see, let's squeeze this back in again. I need a little bit more tape here to make it thicker so that it will stay. Okay, done. So you see, credit cards are so useful in today's world. You cannot believe how many problems they will solve, as in used credit cards, as in credit cards that has already expired. Okay, so if I use the spirit level again, and if you check again from front to rear, it is going to be a little bit tilted upwards already. So when the weight of the Sonos Beam Gen 2 goes on, it should press it down just ever so slightly such that it will be horizontally straight, left and right, front to back. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is to then mount the Sonos Beam Gen 2. Okay, a little bit tricky, but we will touch up in just a little bit. Let me get this right back in. Cable, HDMI, plug in. Power, plug right in. This is not the correct power plug. Let's hope it fits.
Oh shit, it doesn't fit.
So now I got to change the cable out to the original Sonos power cable. Okay, I've got the power cable swapped out. Let's see. Now, you see this Flexson wall mount is actually a lot deeper than the Sonos Beam Gen 2. All right, it's this much versus this much. So it gives quite a bit of space to the rear in order for you to flush the cables and make sure that they fit behind the unit. Okay, laterally it will be a perfect fit. As you can see from here, no extra overhanging soundbar or metal bits. Now there are two mounting screws at the back, which you will then secure the Beam Gen 2 down. Now this kit, these screws are actually supplied by Flexson and is included in the kit. Now when you screw this in, it will secure the Beam Gen 2 to a fixed position, and you will never ever fear the Sonos Beam Gen 2 soundbar falling off the rack, falling off the wall mount. Okay, so right at this point, it looks pretty sleek already, except for the cover. So let's cover this up, and you will see from your angle how neat a solution this looks. Okay, there's some space at the back, and then you push the racetrack cover in, and there you go. Looks like a floating Beam Gen 2. How does that look? Neat. Now, of course, there's a slight problem if you ever decide to change out or rewire the thing, because you can't actually move this. It is so securely mounted, all right, that you won't be able to move this. So if you want to switch any cables in and out of the Sonos Beam Gen 2, you do have to disassemble the unscrew the two holding screws under the bracket in order to move the soundbar to rewire anything. But hopefully, unlike me, you don't actually have to do a lot of that. I keep having to do that because I have to shift things around for testing purposes. I only have one Sonos Beam Gen 2. Whew. Okay, there you go. Take away the cable. Yep. Why did I have to do this? I realized that I was wiring the wrong HDMI cable. Now this HDMI cable is actually going to my Apple TV and not using the eARC port. And this is the correct cable to use. And let's use this one here, and I'll keep it there. Let's cover it back up again. Aesthetically, it's gonna look good. This racetrack cover, I had it painted the same color as my wall as well. So now let's put it back. Now this is a pretty long HDMI cable. I'm just hoping that there's enough space at the rear when it's mounted to fit this in. And it seems that, okay, it does, just barely. There's a bit of kink, but it should work. Let me just screw everything back in again. Okay, and now this is perfectly secured. Let's bring it up, cover it up neatly so that you can't see any wires going in or out of the soundbar. Okay, checking for level. Left to right, almost perfect. Front to back is, well, good enough. Not perfect, good enough. Okay, how secure is this? Pretty secure. Nothing is gonna knock this guy off, I guarantee you that. We're done. So this is the Sony HT-A5000, which is a 6.1 kilogram soundbar. So it is definitely way above the weight of the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which is at 2.8 kg, and it is still using the same Flexson bracket for the Sonos Beam Gen 2. It is not custom fitted to the Sony A5000, and obviously this is a much longer soundbar, so the support actually ends only right here, and you have this whole bit hanging over the actual metal bracket support for the Sonos Beam Gen 2. Now there is still a gap right behind the soundbar, as you can see, so no cables hanging. This is now powered and active. But as you can see, the weight of the soundbar is actually dragging the bracket a little bit forward. I think the bracket itself is not actually tilted, it's just that the mounting, because I had to use some blue tack, so the blue tack is probably not even. If you use this spirit level, the bubble, you see that the bubble is floating all the way to the back, and if you lift it up just a little bit, yep, okay, this is about level, and this is not level. So it is actually tilting a little bit forward, but of course we are way above the weight specification for the Flexson Beam Gen 2 wall mount. But again, a very clean installation. I kind of like it. I'm using the A5000 soundbar in my bedroom now, and it's throwing out an insane amount of bass and soundstage. If you want to check out the review for the Sony HT-A5000 soundbar, do check out the video right here and take a look at that review.